All right. Welcome to the first installment of weekly questions on Management Consulted. I've kind of decided to start recording a weekly video podcast in order to directly answer some of the questions from you guys. It's just a lot easier for me to do that and also to kind of address the emails, the comments that we get in a way that allows me to do it on an ongoing basis. So this is going to be a little bit of an experiment, so bear with me. And we will, of course, transcribe this video podcast for you guys to read as well. Cool. So the first question that came in was, I actually interviewed at McKinsey for first rounds a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, I was told my structure was a bit weak and I lacked creativity in my argument. However, I was told that my leadership skills were strong and that I should speak to a recruiter to see when I could reapply. My McKinsey buddy told me this was a good sign because usually this is not advised at the firm. What do you think? I would actually agree with this. I don't really know more details in terms of if you're in school, if you're currently in the workforce, and if you're in school, whether you're a business school student, undergrad. If a recruiter advises you to reapply, then you should absolutely reapply. It's a great thing. Generally, what this means is that you are probably a little bit inexperienced. They see the potential either from the school that you go to, your prior work experiences, maybe your charisma, or just the interviewer was impressed enough with you to say, well, we want to see this guy back, but we want to give him some time to really kind of get his act together with respect to case studies and to fit and behavioral questions. So what this really means for you is before you reapply, make sure that you do everything in your power to prepare for cases, to really practice interviewing and get that ready. Because if you have those things well, based on what the recruiter has said and what I'm sure the interviewer gave as feedback, you have a very good chance of getting far in the process. And there are plenty of articles on the site that sort of talk about case studies and about interview preparation. Cool. Next question. So I've been reading your site for the past couple weeks and doing a lot of research to find out what it takes to break into management consulting. I'm positive that this career path is perfect for me and have a couple family members who have shared all the positive and negative aspects of consulting. Can you offer me any advice as to how to break into management consulting as a sophomore? All right. Well, I'd say the first thing is it's great that you're thinking about it as a sophomore. Early preparation is great. It always puts you ahead of the game. There are kind of a couple of things that you should do right now. Number one is try to find a great job, a good brand name to get on your firm. A good brand name would be Citibank. A good brand name would be General Electric. A good brand name would be any of the Fortune 500 companies, really. And the reason for that is because that kind of validates you to recruiters and to firms. Find a part-time job if you can. Get a summer internship there. The second thing to do is if your school has consulting clubs, join them. If it doesn't, start your own. The reason why is because it gives you a ton of practice with cases. It gives you more insight into how the consulting world actually works to see if you like it or you don't. And it also allows you to build very valuable contacts at consulting firms, which will come in very handy down the road. As an example, I went to Stanford, so I understand Stanford the best. We have this group called Stanford Consulting, which is actually incredibly valuable if you're interested in working for McKinsey, Bain, BCG, any of the top consulting firms. And the reason why is because Stanford Consulting has good relationships with each of these firms. They do special information sessions, case prep sessions. You even might get mentors at those firms. And those contacts are very valuable when it comes around to recruiting time. So if there isn't one, try to start one. If there is one, try your best to join it. The last thing I would say is make sure that your GPA stays up if it's high and gets up if it's low. The GPA actually is pretty important, and it makes a lot of sense because academic performance is correlated with in many ways the work that consultants do, right? They want to make sure you're detail-oriented, you're hardworking, you're diligent, you know how to follow instructions. And those are all things that will lead to a good GPA. So if you don't have a good GPA, bust your ass to get a good one. If you do, then make sure that it stays really high. Cool. Next question. It'd be nice to hear how you utilize the McKinsey Alumni Network since you left the firm, and generally what resources are available to former consultants. So this is a great one. One of the things that people always talk about is how valuable consulting firms are with respect to their alumni networks. Some are definitely more valuable than others, given size, given history, that sort of thing. McKinsey is actually well known for a very valuable alumni network, and I would say I have a very strong kind of personal testimony to that. After I left McKinsey, I was working on Management Consulted, and during my time working on it, I actually came across an alumni named Cyriac Redding, who is a former McKinsey alum in the German offices. And I reached out to him and basically it's just like, this is what I'm doing. I see right now that you are an entrepreneur in residence at Kleiner Perkins. I'm very interested in startups and in consumer internet. I'd love to meet you. And basically, I think like a day or two later, he called me out of the blue. It was just like, what are you working on? I want to learn more about you. Why don't we meet up for coffee? Had a few meetings, and eventually I became part of his founding team for Shopkick, which is an iPhone application company. And without that McKinsey connection, I don't think I would have first even have heard of him, and second, have had enough of a connection that he would feel compelled to reach out to me. So that's a very powerful and personal example. Do you think an MBA from INSEAD and a PhD will make it possible for me to get into MC, to management consulting, at a top firm? INSEAD's great, actually. In terms of international business schools, INSEAD is definitely up there with respect to how prestigious it is amongst consulting firms and the strength of its alumni network. So I'd say if you get an MBA from INSEAD, as long as consulting is something that you've always been thinking about and you actively pursue from the day that you enroll and step foot on campus, that you have a very good shot, because they do have good access to the best consulting firms, and they also have a good alumni network at a lot of strategy and as well as boutique consulting firms. All right, next question. So I'm finishing a master's in biomechanical engineering and had a previous employer put me in contact with a partner at BCG, with the pretense being that I just wanted to chat. We have a call meeting set up for this Friday. What should I expect from this conversation? Should I treat it purely as an information session or try and leverage it into an interview? What sort of tone do you recommend? Great question. So this type of stuff happens all the time. Maybe your parents know a partner at Bain. Maybe, as in this case, your previous employer has a friend, a former colleague, or just a random contact at a top consulting firm, and they connect you guys via email. What should you do? So I think the best thing that you already did, which is to set up a call. And you should definitely approach the call as almost like an informational call. We've kind of talked about this in the past, but really the first time that you meet a senior person, or even a more junior person at a consulting firm, you don't want to immediately get into question mode, right? You don't want to fire off 20 questions to try to better understand the consulting industry. What you really want to do is approach it as a conversation to share kind of your background, and then kind of segue into why you're interested in consulting. So you can say, I recently graduated with a master's in biomechanical engineering. Consulting has always been an industry that I've been interested in because I've done X, Y, and Z in the past, and I would love to just kind of find out more about how you got to where you are today, and what advice you could give me if I were interested in breaking in. I would say, unless you know this person really well, the first phone call is never an opportunity to directly ask for something. So don't ask for an interview. Don't ask if you can send them your resume to be considered for a job. You can say, I would love to get your feedback on my resume. But again, what you want to do is you want to take this very indirectly, right? So the goal out of any of these first calls with people like this should be, let them know your background, let them know you're interested in consulting, and get their advice and feedback on how you can break into the industry, not on how you can get a job at their company. These people are savvy enough, they're experienced enough that if they think you have potential, if they like you, they will ask you for your resume. They will make sure that you get into the application cycle. But if you directly ask them, sometimes it'll rub them the wrong way. Cool. So I actually think that answers all the reader questions I've gotten over the last couple of weeks. And I know a lot of you guys have also left comments on the blog, and I'm a little bit slow to respond to that, so my apologies. And what you may want to do is just email directly, and I'll try to include it in next week's version of the video podcast. And until then, good luck to everybody, and have a happy Thanksgiving. And definitely don't hesitate to reach out if there's any way that we here at Management Consulted can help you. Thank you.